Hello everyone, back to today's first video, doing JMA Friday for today's first video, which means having a detailed look at the weather for the month ahead across the British Isles. This takes us into the early part of February, so into the final month of winter of 2017-18. We've got some cold weather coming up next week, and it could be wintry at times, so today's second video update, we'll have a look at the chance of some cold weather, and also have the latest on the stratospheric warming that we've been talking about all week as well. There has been some developments with that overnight, so come back this afternoon for today's second video. But JMA Friday kicks us off. We're going to start off by having a look at the Japanese long-range model for the month ahead of May compared to the CFS V2. So we'll begin with the 500 millibar height anomalies. These are broken down into weekly periods from the JMA, the Japanese Meteorological Agency, and it's from the North Pole view down. So this is the North Pole of the Northern Hemisphere just here. The British Isles is just there. It's hard to make us out because of the intensity of the colour there, but we're just there in that sort of part of the chart as you're looking at it. So 500 millibars is an area in the atmosphere, high pressure, low pressure are being driven by the jet stream, and blue is extrapolating to low pressure, and yellow, orange and red extrapolating to high pressure. So for the coming week, this is the 500 millibar height anomaly from the 12th to the 19th of January. We find we've got above average heights to our north, quite a strong blocking signal there with those orange colours, and then underneath it we've got this trough of below average heights extending through the UK into much of Central Europe, and that means that we're doing something like that, the flow and the jet stream. Essentially we're on the cold side of the jet there, and we're under a trough of low pressure with the air being pushed out from the north. So you'd expect quite a cold week with that, quite cold, quite unsettled, and there would be a risk of some wintry potential as well in the week ahead. Then we go through to week 2, which is the 19th to the 26th of January, with below average heights over and to the east of the UK, above average heights in the Atlantic, and extending up to our north as well. And that means we're pulling quite cold air down into this trough of low pressure. So I'd expect this to be another cold and unsettled week, with the air generally coming from the north and placing us on the cold side of the jet stream there too, from the 19th to 26th of January. Quite a cold end to January, if that's right. Then we go through to weeks 3 and 4. This takes us from the 26th of January to the 9th of February, and we find that heights are strengthening to our south. So we're building a ridge up across much of Europe, particularly Central and Southern Europe. We have still got something of a blocking signal up to the north, so we're between two ridges essentially. You would expect the jet stream to be going a bit like that. This will be a much milder 2-weekly anomaly, but bear in mind it is a 2-week anomaly, so it might be transitional. You might have something more blocked and colder for week 3, and then maybe build the heights up to the south for week 4, which would turn things very mild, or it might be vice versa. So it may be that week 3 actually has the heights to the south, and so that will be the mild week, and then week 4 could see the blocking return and become cold. You always have to keep that in mind with those 2-weekly anomalies, but it does suggest that the start of February probably turns quite a bit milder. So we have a look at the tropical mid-latitude view now in terms of the temperature and precipitation anomalies based on those heights from the JMA model. Coming back to week 1, British Isles just here in the top right hand corner of the chart as you're looking at it. Of course, we find we've got this area of below average heights again through the UK and into Central Europe as well. You expect this to be quite a cold week. The temperature anomaly is coming out colder than average for the north and west. The south and east is actually close to average, but I do think this will be quite a cold week that we'd have coming up here. And the precipitation anomaly is coming out wetter than average as well, above average precipitation anomalies with quite cool temperatures. It does mean that we'd have the risk of some wintry conditions, I think, through this coming week, the 12th to the 19th of January. Very little change through week 2 with the trough over and to the east of the UK, with the above average heights out to the west, we're still being placed on the cold side of the jet stream. The temperature anomaly, precipitation anomaly I should say, coming out above average, so another unsettled week. Now the temperature anomaly is a little bit dubious, I think. It's coming out close to average. But I think that's still another colder than average week that we'd have there. I struggle to see how we'd see much of a warm-up with that trough being centred over and to the east of the UK, the ridge out to the west and the northwest. I think that's another cold week there, and the model is overcooking the temperatures a bit, as these seasonal models do tend to overcook the temperatures. I think that's a bit dubious. I expect that to be a colder week if the model is right, 19th to the 26th of January. And then we go through to weeks 3 and 4, which is the 26th of January to the 9th of February, and we raise the heights to our south and build them across Central Europe as well. That pulls the air into the southwest with jet stream as well, so I expect this to be really quite a mild couple of weeks coming up. It's still unsettled. The precipitation anomaly is still coming out above average, but the difference is that the temperatures are lifting up. So the temperature anomaly here is going significantly milder than average, as it is for much of Europe as well. So that implies quite a mild start actually to February with the JMA. Let's compare that to the CFS V2, and these again, 500 millibar heights, break it down into week periods. The first week period taking us from the 12th through to the 18th of January. Almost identical to what the JMA is doing. So we've got below average heights through the UK and in Central Europe as well. We've got above average heights up to our northeast and in the Atlantic. We're being placed on the cold side of the jet stream, with the jet doing something like that. Cold and unsettled then for the week ahead, with some wintry potential parts of the country. And good agreement again for week 2. This takes us from the 19th to 25th of January. With the area of below average heights centred over and to the east of the UK. And then we've got above average heights up to the north and to the northwest country. That's a strong blocking signal that we've got there actually to our north. We do have some above average heights to the south, but they're more centred around North Africa, so I don't really see much there to pull the jet stream back north. And I think we are being placed on the cold side of the jet with that trough. So you'd expect another pretty cold and unsettled week there from the 19th through to the 25th of January. Week 3, which is the 26th of January to the 1st of February, this sees another change with the area of above average heights then centering over the UK. So this is becoming mostly anticyclonic and dry, I would have thought, with below average heights being pushed into the central Atlantic. Doing something like that with the flow with the jet stream, although the jet isn't as important in that sort of situation. It's very anticyclonic, so you'd expect a lot of frost with that. Probably nothing particularly wintry in terms of snow, but you would expect quite a lot of frost. When we look at the temperature anomaly, it will probably be depicting a very mild week, but it is unable to sort of see the frost potential. I think with high press centred over the country in end of January, start of February, there would be quite a significant frost risk with that. And then we go through to week 4, which is the 2nd through to the 8th of February. The above average heights still centred over the UK, maybe hinting at that they're starting to pull ever so slightly to our west. With the flow of the jet stream, we're doing something like that. We may even be starting to pull in some slightly colder air from the northeast with that. I'm not sure. You'd expect to, for that to happen, you don't want to extend the ridge further northwest. But it does look very, very anticyclonic there for the end of January and start of February. You would expect a significant risk of night frost, if nothing else. Temperature anomalies for the coming week are cold average. Now, this is more what I'd expect for the week ahead based on the height anomaly. So I do think the JMA was overcooking the temperatures a little bit throughout, really, but particularly for weeks 1 and 2. So cold average temperature anomalies in the week ahead with CFS V2, and that does make sense. And that continues into week 2 as well. Again, this more in line with what I'd expect to see compared to what the JMA is showing. So another colder than average week for week 2. Fairly cold second half of January, therefore. Then we go through to week 3. Now, this is when that ridge is building in over the top of the country. So the model is going milder than average. And it's possible we might come out ever so slightly milder than average. But actually, I think because it's such a strong ridge, we would have the risk of frost and fog, and so that would limit the temperatures. You'd expect it to be a bit colder, I think, for that final week of January, what that is showing. And then week 4, which is the 2nd to the 8th of January. Again, we've got that ridge very much centred over the UK, but it might be shifting a little bit more to the west. We come out with a milder than average week again, but notice most of Europe is going cold, and this does imply that we are very close by week 4, this first week of February. We're very close to starting to pull in colder easterly winds. I do think there is a potential by week 4, this first week of February, of maybe pulling in some cold air from the east. Generally quite a cold outlook, I think, reading between the lines from the CFS V2 for the month ahead. Precipitation anomalies finally, so the coming week is average to a bit above average with the precipitation. You'd expect it to be an unsettled week because the trough is extended through the country. Week 2 also comes out average to maybe hinting at being a bit above average with the precipitation. Many central parts of Europe coming out above average with precipitation as well. A lot of that would be snow, of course. So quite a cold, quite unsettled, and at times quite wintry couple of weeks there from the middle to the second half of January. Then as we build that ridge over top of the country, obviously it's going to turn drier, so this is a much drier than average week that the model is seeing from the 26th of January to the 1st of February, and then that continues into week 4 as well, the 2nd to the 8th of February, also coming out significantly drier than average as it does for much of Europe as well. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, but read between the lines, I think let's deal with the first couple of weeks first of all, because that's the closest to us. I think that does hold some cold and wintry potential. I do think the JMA was overcooking temperatures a little bit for the first couple of weeks, and I think CFS looks more in line with that. So weeks 1 and 2 through to around the closing days of January, that looks quite straightforward, looks cold and unsettled. I would expect some wintry conditions in with that as well. It's weeks 3 and 4 that we've got the divergence between the models. The JMA clearly wants to turn things much milder, build the heights to the south. The CFS has that high pressure much more centrally located over the UK, and by week 4 the CFS is actually indicating a chance of bringing what could be really very cold easterly winds to much of Europe, and possibly getting them quite close to the UK as well. If that came off, obviously after a briefly slightly less cold interlude, maybe for the closing days of January and the opening days of February, you'd expect quite a cold easterly to start setting up through that first week of February. I think that's a little bit more speculative, but overall the CFS is quite cold, I think, in the month ahead, reading between the lines. The JMA has hints at a cold start, wants to turn things milder later. Bear in mind, if we do get this southern stratospheric warming, and I'll have more about that when I do today's second video, that would tend to favour, but doesn't guarantee, the chance of some quite cold conditions into February. So it could be that CFS V2 is more along the lines of how this is going to play out. But I think that is quite speculative. Let's deal with the first couple of weeks first of all, which do look quite cold and wintry for the rest of January. Come back later on for today's second video, where we will have more on the risk of cold and wintry conditions next week, and also the very latest on the developments in the stratosphere. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.